Hello and welcome to Bonus, and this is episode 7. Of course, you might have noticed I'm currently knee-deep in the Ghosts weapon guides, actually about a quarter of the way through of those now. 7 done with 30 planned, which, if you think about it, isn't bad going, considering we've only been going a week. Anyway, I continue on that front with aplomb. In the background this week I've got some Battlefield 4 single-player gameplay for you. I was playing some of the campaign for some of the unlocks and the achievements, and I figured I might as well record some gameplay for the bonus whilst I was at it. It's good to keep things varied, and I think I'll try and get a different game every week just to, just spice things up a bit. But as ever, the gameplay's not that important. We're here for the questions. So these forthcoming questions have all been taken from last week's bonus video, and if you leave your question down below for next week, there is a finite chance that I will read it and answer your question. So, first up, Sassinator Lord of Sassins says, Stu, would you do Halo 5 and Destiny, or are you not so keen? Both of those are quite some distance in the future, almost impossible to say one way or the other whether I will cover them or not. But at this stage, I will say Destiny is very probable, and a slim probability of me doing Halo 5. I do quite like the Halo series. In fact, I've bought most of them, and I enjoy the single player, but I never really get into multiplayer that much. Maybe it'll be different with Halo 5, I don't know. As it stands, my current plan, and this is subject to change, and I do feel as though I have to say this, because a lot of things can change over the course of a year. And sometimes I'll say something like, I'll say, oh, I'm going to do this, and then a year later, or somebody will say to me, Stu, you promised you were going to do this, and then you never did. That was a year ago. Things are different now. So as with all of my future predictions and plans, take this with a grain of salt. So first up, I'm going to finish the Ghosts guides. After that, early 2014, I should have a month or two at least of free time, of which I would quite like to do some Forza 5 content, and I'd also quite like to do some Battlefield 4 content. I don't think I'm going to do anything too serious for either of them. Probably just a short series with a run of maybe between, 4 and 10 episodes, something in that sort of single digits range. But I will definitely want to do some content for games that are both next-gen and not Call of Duty. This might also be the window when I produce the gore-themed video. I've done the research and I've recorded a lot of games for that already, so it just needs a script writing really. I mentioned this before, I think I'd quite like to use the a brief history of format. So it would be a brief history of gore, which I think could be quite interesting. Anyway, that takes us to March. Now March sees the release of Titanfall. Titanfall is probably the Xbox One's first big exclusive. And I'm a little bit wary about covering exclusive games, but there's enough hype behind Titanfall to drive some interest in videos, I think, so you can definitely expect at least a couple of months of content for Titanfall. At this stage, of course, I'm not entirely sure of the precise nature of the content. It's probably not just going to be a straightforward weapon guide, because it's a different game, and I think it does deserve a different format. But I might very well break down all of the weapons on offer, if the game offers agency and choice in that sector. Another potential area are the Titans as well, because it looks like there's a few different Titans. So you can probably expect a video for each of the Titans. I'll probably start week 1 with like a basic primer, how to play this game video. Just 10-15 minutes on the basics. And then I'll build up a library of reference videos from there. Hopefully Titanfall is a success. Hopefully it's a good game and it'll do my channel good, hopefully, as well. If not, I guess I'll probably move on to something else. But otherwise, I'm looking probably to run until September with the Titanfall content. At which point, Destiny is released. And Destiny's an interesting one. It was supposed to release in spring, but it's been delayed until September. Now, September is troubling the Call of Duty window. And what's interesting is the fact that both Call of Duty and Destiny are being published by Activision. So this almost strikes me as a deliberate attempt to sort of encroach into that Call of Duty window with this new franchise. And I'm kind of wondering if maybe Activision are thinking, alright, Call of Duty's kind of a bit long in the tooth now. We need a new franchise, something fresh, something exciting. So I'm kind of feeling like Activision are purposefully positioning Destiny as a Call of Duty replacement. Anyway, Destiny does look interesting, and Bungie are a really, really proven studio. And obviously, the further we get from the present, the more and more nebulous my predictions come, but Destiny is definitely on my radar. After that, I'm not even going to try and make predictions. My philosophy on videos is that I should make videos for the games that I'm playing, which, I think is a good way of doing it. And of course, the games that I play depend on the games that I like, and that's the sort of thing you can only really determine once a game's out. So yeah, we'll play it ear by ear, but 2014 looks like it's going to be dominated by Titanfall and Destiny for my channel. I wonder if Black Ops 3 will come out in November. I mean, that would seem like the most logical bet. I don't know about that game. I don't know. Maybe Destiny won't be what I hope it is, and maybe I will move back to Call of Duty. Or maybe Ghosts will be the last Call of Duty game I ever cover. Calico, the FPS guy, says, "Why did you start YouTube? Did you think there was a role to be filled? Or did you do it for fun? Or both?" Probably the key reason is I like the challenge of communication. I've always kind of been a multimedia guy. I've always worked in a variety of formats. And the work that I've done in the past, from my computer games programming of my youth to my 8 years in a web design career, the thing these have in common is the fact that it's not just a single discipline. In the case of computer games programming, you've got sprites to draw, you've got mathematics and programming and logic to program, and you've got sound to program as well, stuff like that. It's a union of all sorts of different things, and the web is the same as well. You've got this fusion of images and markup language in HTML and the style sheets, with the back-end applications driven by databases. Again, it's this wonderful fusion of a whole different array of disciplines. And that's what appeals to me, really. It's sort of a combination of a variety of different disciplines into one glorious whole. And that's what video production was to me as well. It was another facet of multimedia production that I could tackle, I could get into, and I could use video as a format to communicate. So of the two options presented, I suppose you could say that it was done for fun, or to be more specific, it's the enjoyment of the pursuit of a multimedia art form. James Burton says, "Hey Stu, you said that Ghosts is the dying embers of Call of Duty. Sure, it does not feel as much like Call of Duty did in the past, which is what made it COD. But some of what people complain about in other Call of Duties are absent in this one, and there are new things in it. So, my question is, what is your take on this? And are you expecting another COD from Treyarch, as most of us are, and do you think they will keep it closer to COD than Ghosts?" So we touched on this. The next COD, Treyarch, 2014, Black Ops 3, except no official title has been announced, so it might not be Black Ops 3. But let's face it, Black Ops is a pretty strong brand, and Activision aren't going to take too many risks with their biggest franchise at the moment. I don't know, the thing is, I like Treyarch. Treyarch are a really, really competent studio. They were brought in to play second fiddle to Infinity Ward, and as a studio, they've transformed from just a bunch of guys who did console ports for like the PS2 and stuff like that, like with Call of Duty Big Red one. They've gone from that to one that's on equal or better footing than Infinity Ward, the studio that originated the Call of Duty series. So we've got this perfect storm. We've got an able studio, a well-established franchise, and we've got new hardware, which will be just reaching the point where games for it are starting to reach a much more optimized level than the launch titles that we've seen. So Black Ops 3 or Black Ops Trinity or whatever the marketing bods come up with could very well turn out to be a technically impressive game. Whether or not it'll save the Call of Duty franchise, I don't know. It's an interesting game to watch, if nothing else. All the same, with diminished interest in the franchise, it's probably best to hedge your bets. Safe to say Activision are doing the very same thing with their introduction of Destiny at around the same time. Anyway, time will tell. Maybe they'll skip a year this time around, just to wax off the Call of Duty fatigue it had. Used Placebo 91 says, "Stu, have you ever heard of or seen the American sports of baseball and American football? If so, what do you think of them?" Yes, believe it or not, I have heard of American football, and I have heard of baseball, yes. I can't say I'm a huge follower of either, but I'm not really that much of a sports follower, so that shouldn't come as too much of a surprise. Birchie asks, "Stu, how many of the other Monkey Island games did you play, and what did you think of the newfangled special editions of Secret of Monkey Island and LeChuck's Revenge?" I have played all of the Secret of Monkey Island games. Even the episodic Telltale ones, which were actually quite good. Telltale are really going strength to strength at the minute. Of the originals, my favourite is probably the second one, LeChuck's Revenge, just because it was larger in scope than the first and the graphics were beautiful. Second favourite is probably the very first one, of course, because it's the classic, and it had all of that classic humour and style. Third favourite, probably the third one, and then fourth favourite, well, probably the Telltale stuff. I quite liked the special edition of the first two. I thought they were pretty tastefully done. I didn't much care for the hair of Guybrush in the first one. It was a little bit quiffy. Oh, here's the perfect opportunity to roll out a Secret of Monkey Island fact. Guybrush's name comes from Deluxe Paint, because you can save out like a marquee, a cropped out section of an image as a brush with their dot brush extension. And they did this for the character sprite, and they called him Guy. And of course the file was saved as guy.brush. And that's how his name came about. There's a secret of Monkey Island fact for you. Frederick Schutzer says, greetings from Germany, Stu. Does it get annoying with all the questions that start with, hey Stu? Well, individually I don't mind them that much. I mean, it's my name, or it's a shortened form of my name that I find acceptable. Stewie, not acceptable. Stu, yeah. So yeah, individually, it's fine. The trouble is when you get large groups of comments like this, like in these bonus videos, it's all, hey Stu, hey Stu, hey Stu. Or on my Reddit subreddit, which is all, Stu, 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 Stu this, Stu that. I was considering renaming it Stu, 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 Stu at one point. But really, it's fine. Maybe I should have another no Stu week. But it doesn't bother me that much. I'm just... If you are leaving a comment, just know that you don't have to put "Hey Stu" at the start of it, because I do read all of the comments as though they were addressed to me. If it's on my video and it's not clearly directed at somebody else, I do kind of presume that it is directed at me. So it's fine. You don't need to put "Hey Stu" if you want to get selected. You really don't. Wahaj Siddiqui says, Stu, ZX Spectrum fanboy or the clearly better Commodore 64? Now there's a loaded question if ever there were one. I had a ZX Spectrum and I loved it very much, thank you. I was a little bit too young to really have an awareness of any conflicts between different platforms. I did have a friend who had a C64, and he was all like, oh guys, you've got to come round and see my C64. It's the best, it's way better than the Spectrum. And so we went round to his house and he stuck a tape in and he loaded it, and well, it took about 15 minutes to load. And then it's like, alright, show us the game then. And then it crashed. And we were all like, yeah, whatever, mate. Better than the ZX Spectrum. ZX Spectrum loads in 10 minutes and it only crashes half the time. And then we all went home and played Dizzy. But yeah, I mean, the Commodore 64, in retrospect, yeah, it's a better system than the ZX Spectrum. Well, if power is your only metric, I mean, there's more to it than that. Stevie Murphyno says, are you disappointed with the amount of views your COD Ghosts weapon guides are receiving, especially compared to your Modern Warfare and Black Ops series? Well, overall, I'm making up the difference in volume. I mean, I'm uploading 4 guides a week, which, I mean, that does help on the view count front. But individually, I think it is fair to say that the view counts are down. I think that's more of a reflection of interest in Ghosts than anything else. People just aren't excited about the game this year. Like, I know a lot of my friends who've bought every single Call of Duty up to this point, they didn't get Ghosts because they're just not interested. If you pair that with the fact that it's straddling a generation as well, I think that's abating the interest a little bit. Kind of a tough time for games at the minute, really. There's not really that much that's compelling. Everything good from the next generation's been pushed back to 2014. Like I say, I'm going to ride Ghosts for a little while, and then switch over to Battlefield 4 maybe, do some content for this. And then after that, Titanfall. Hopefully Titanfall's the great saviour. I mean, I don't take it too personally if view counts are down. I mean, I don't mind. If people aren't interested in Ghosts and they don't watch my videos, it's not a personal insult to me. It's really a reflection of the interest in the game. It's YouTube's way of saying, Stu, do a different game, would you? Alright then, YouTube, if that's what you want. Papafish20 says, Stu, you said that you and the girlfriend have very different tastes in music. How so? Girlfriend's into early 90s grunge, rock, stuff like that. My tastes are cleaner, more electronic, more modern. I like early electronic stuff, Detroit techno, acid house. I like some rave stuff from the early 90s as well. Late 90s is kind of a mix of techno, big beat, a bit of trance as well. And then I got into hard house as a DJ for a while. It's kind of a guilty pleasure, I still like it to this day. 2000s, my tastes mellowed a little bit. I got into Electroclash, Electronica, that sort of thing. More downbeat stuff like Boards of Canada, love Boards of Canada. Lemon Jelly, Aphex Twin. According to Last.fm, top bands, Metric, Goldfrapp, Boards of Canada, Garbage, Aphex Twin, Marina and the Diamonds, Ladyhawk, Ozzy Barak, Radioactive Man, Daft Punk, No Doubt, Moloko, The Chemical Brothers, Justice. So a little bit different compared to the girlfriend, but, you know, it's not really a point of contention, and I actually quite like some post-grunge stuff. I took her to see Metric with me last time I went, and I think she quite enjoyed them. We do both fall on the same side when it comes to the Oasis Blur divide, though, which is one thing. Agi2896 says, Stu, I recently watched your AK-12 video and found out it was in 1080p. I thought you weren't going to do that for a while. Well, don't be fooled, it's not recorded at 1080p, because my Blackmagic only does 720. In actual fact, my Vegas project is at 720 as well, just because I prefer, well, it's easier for me to edit like that. I am now rendering at 1080p, however, just to take advantage of YouTube's maximum available bitrate. I'm not entirely convinced that 1080p looks any better than 720 on YouTube, but it does seem to keep people happy when they see there's a 1080p option. Although really what YouTube needs is not higher resolution options, but higher bitrate. I mean, the 720p, absolutely fine, absolutely gorgeous when it's originally rendered. It's just, when it gets uploaded to YouTube, everything gets crushed, and everything's ruined. The Zugar MJM5 says, I've noticed that the first couple of episodes of your weapon guide have just flip-flopped from submachine gun to assault rifle. I understand there isn't any specific order you can go in, like in past Call of Duty games, as there is no longer a level at which a given weapon is unlocked. So, are you planning to cover just SMGs and ARs first, or will you eventually mix the other groups in? The plan is to cover all of the assault rifles and all of the SMGs first. For the simple reason that these videos are prime demand. 90% of all videos requested are for the assault rifles or SMGs. All the way through doing the Black Ops 2 series, people were like, oh, can you do the AN-94, Stu? Can you do the AN-94? And my normal tack is to kind of just take a hard line and stick to the unlock order. And I kind of like that approach just for the delayed gratification side of things. You know, I like to hold out on the good stuff. It gives people a reason to watch until the end. But my philosophy with the Ghost series was to satisfy as many people as quickly as possible. So, prime demand goes right at the start. Having said that, of course, people are still typing, Stu, can you do the honey badger? Can you do the, I'm gonna do the honey badger? Anyway, after we've done the assault rifles and SMGs, we're just gonna wind through the remaining categories in, you know, relatively meandering fashion. So it'll be LMG, marksman rifle, sniper rifle, shotgun, rinse repeat until finished. The Fury says, hey Stuart, you brought back some good old memories by talking about a game. One simple question, Sonic or Mario? Well, if we're talking about recent games, Sonic's in rather a sorry state and Mario's going from strength to strength. But back in the day, back in about 91, 92, I was all about Sonic. I mean, come on, Mario is do-do-do-do-do-do. I'm a fat plumber, walking very slowly through a level, and I'm bored already. Compare, contrast with Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm running through the meadow, going round a loop-de-loop. No contest, if you ask me. No contest whatsoever. Alex Nugent says, hey Stu, I've noticed in your videos that you mentioned you were brought up and live in Lancashire. However, your accent sounds somewhat southern in my opinion. Would you say that you are just well-spoken? My accent's kind of an oddball, if I'm honest. Because I was brought up near Preston, and Preston has a very distinctive accent, and it's not the accent that I have. I think the accent that I have is sometimes known as a forces accent. That is to say, the armed forces, and what it is, it's kind of a neutral mix of accents from all over the country, which normally comes about from people who live or are brought up in or around military bases. Because obviously in a case like that, in military bases, you've got people who have come from all over the UK to be deployed at this one particular base. Now, none of my family are in the armed forces, but my dad does work in the aeronautical industry, and that's the sort of industry where you move for your job. And in fact, the village in which I grew up was basically populated by people who worked at the aircraft plant. Everyone in my primary school basically had a dad who worked at the aircraft plant. I mean, it was a little Lancastrian village, it was nothing special. The only reason you would ever want to live there is if you had a job. So I was put in a very similar situation to somebody who might have lived on an army base. I spent the majority of my formative years with people who originally came from all over the UK, and I guess that's how my accent came about. Because it certainly isn't a Prestonian accent, and it's certainly not Mancunian, I can tell you that much. The Crazy Taco says, hey Stu, as somebody who's played a lot of the COD games, which one did you enjoy playing the most? It's kind of a tough question really, because you get a certain type of enjoyment out of each of them really. With COD 4 it was kind of this naive appeal. You didn't know that Call of Duty was going to be a yearly thing. It was just a game that you played and you had fun and you ran around with your Silence P90, and you shot people, and it was actually quite nice. Yeah, it was fun. World of War was kind of the same, but different. It was all old-styley, but it was the same sort of gameplay. And it was kind of fun, and I actually had quite a bit of fun with World at War, and it was nice. And then Modern Warfare 2 came out, and I don't know about you, but I was hugely excited for the launch of it. So excited I even started making videos for it. After that, of course, it's all been downhill. But I don't know, I think those first 3 games I probably had the most enjoyment out of. If I were forced to rank them, I'd probably say Modern Warfare 2 was the game I had the greatest level of overall enjoyment out of. Followed by Modern Warfare the first, and then followed by World at War. After that, possibly I'd put Black Ops 2. Then Black Ops, then maybe Ghosts, then Modern Warfare 3. Yeah, something like that, I don't know. Anyway, we've hit 20 minutes, so I'm going to wrap this one up. I've run out of questions as well, pretty much. So leave your comment down below, and there's a fairly good chance I'll pick it up for next week if it's interesting. Otherwise, I shall see you on my main channel this week for the Viper, Remington R5, K7, and the infamous MSBS. Thank you very much for watching, and until next week, farewell.